it's me again, and I am particularly excited because it's TGIF. Girl, dude, get your behind off that seat. Give yourself a break. I don't know what time you're watching this, but if it's past your work hour, girl, dude, get off that seat and take a rest, okay? Today is our first episode of our on-demand series. So this is where I get to answer all your questions pertaining to traveling as a digital nomad. And guess what we're discussing today? Yes, you guessed right, like I told you. Today is the day we're going to be discussing the Malta Residence Permit. The Malta Residence Permit allows you to reside in Malta for up to a year, and this is a permit you can renew for 2 years, which gives you 3 years in all. So almost anyone can apply for the Malta Residence Visa as far as you meet these eligibility criteria. One of them is you need to be a remote worker. So you need to be able to work from any location. 2, you need to be a third country national. So what this means is you should not be from EU or the EEA and Switzerland, those Schengen EU area. That's 2. And 3, you need to be making a minimum of 2,700 euros. I think that's a little over $3,000. You need to be working for a non-Maltese company. You need to have a comprehensive health insurance. You need to provide a property lease or property purchase. Here on the Nomad Residence Permits website, when you click on the eligibility option, here you will see all the basic requirements to make this application. To apply for the Malta Residence Permit, these are the things that you need. So 1, you need to fill a couple of forms. So all the forms you have to fill have to be typewritten. Handwritten forms are not accepted. You need to write a letter of intent telling them why you are choosing Malta as a place to live. You also need to show them your CV, Europass CV. Then you need to show 3 months bank statement. And also you need to prove that you have been making over 2,700 euros in the past 5 months. But basically all you need to submit in your bank statement is your last 3 months. So how you can show this is, you need to show contracts from your employer. Your employer, the contract has to state how much you're earning. So when you have gathered all these documents, what next do? You submit. So the very wonderful thing about the Malta Residence Permit is that everything is fully remote. Yes, you do not have to go to any offices. This is actually something I dread. Most times when I want to apply for a visa and then I find out that I have to go to like an embassy or, a visa office or something, it's usually like a blur, like a turn off for me. But this, you can do everything online. You don't need to meet anybody in person. Everything, you just have to fill it online. So when you have gathered all these documents, right? Still on the Nomad Residence Permit website, when you select the forms option, on that page, you are going to see a list of documents. These documents include the forms and the checklist for what you need to submit for your application. This is showing you a checklist for new applications. There is checklist for new applications and for renewals. They are going to go through your application, and if everything is fine with them, they are going to send you a mail giving you payment information, the bank you're going to make a payment of 300 euros into. And to make this payment, you have to make it from your personal bank account. You can't use somebody else's bank account to make this payment. It has to come from your bank account. Then after you make this payment, they're going to acknowledge the payment. Then they are going to start working on your documents. It usually take about a month to go through your documents and everything to, issue you an approval or rejection. So mine took about a month. I was still give a rundown of how my application went. But first of all, I'm just going to give you a summary. So they're going to give you an approval or rejection. This is called So if it's an approval, it's going to be called an approval in principle. So when they give you an approval in principle, then you need to go get a comprehensive health insurance. This has to include inpatient and outpatient. Then you also need to get a rental lease or purchase. Or if you're not in Malta already, something you can do is to get an accommodation for 1 month. This could be like on an Airbnb, or maybe it could be a hostel, but it has to be up to a month. After you've submitted your rental agreement or 1 month stay with your comprehensive health insurance, they are now going to give you a final approval. So at this point, if Malta is visa free for you, or you already have a Malta visa, you can start going to Malta already. And when you get to Malta, you're going to apply for your resident card. But if you don't have a Malta visa and Malta is not visa free for you, this is the point where you now have to apply for the Schengen visa. What you will be applying for is the D visa, the professional visa. That's the national visa. For these two, it's also completely remote because you most likely be applying through the premium visa. So the premium visa, you also like pay them 300 euros, and you send your passport to them. And once they are done with the decision, they are going to send the passport back to you. They normally use UPS or DHL. Now I am going to give you a timeline of how my application went through. So from the point of the first email I sent to Nomad residents to the point of taking my card, that took 4 months. I have my phone here to read out all the timelines to you because there's a long list of everything I did. On February 9th, that was the day I submitted my first email after gathering all the documents and my CV and my bank statements and everything. So on February 11th, I got an acknowledgement from Nomad Residence Malta. Then on February 14th, I got a prompt to pay a sum of 300 euros to the Nomad residents, and this payment had to come from my account. So I had some issues with my local bank where I couldn't send, so I had dollars. I wanted to send from my dollar accounts to the bank in Malta, but it was like a back and forth. So I eventually had to create a Euro account. And I finally made this payment on the 10th of March. On the 13th of March, I received acknowledgement from Nomad Residence Malta, and then they started processing my application. Then on the 28th of March, I got some query because usually I was making my expenses from my wallet. So my company uses an international payroll, and I could use their card. It wasn't a traditional bank, and their statements wasn't, the usual traditional statements. So they needed to clarify that, and I provided them some clarification. Then on 30th of March, I got my letter of approval in principle. So after I got my letter of approval in principle, I got a comprehensive health insurance. Health insurance I got then was, it was a 2 years insurance, but I could pay monthly, right? But I just found out from my friend who just applied that they do not take that kind of insurance anymore. They want the kind of insurance where you have already paid the full 1 year in advance. They don't want the one you make the monthly payments. Then after I submitted my documents, the CVU, that's the Central Visa Unit, reached out to me. And then after they reached out to me, on a second thought, I decided that I was going to get a lease instead of using the Airbnb apartment. I went online and then I found a house agent who helped me get a house in Malta, which was, like a risk by itself, getting a house that I had not seen in person. I got my agent to get me videos of the houses I was checking out. I had certain requirements. I was interested in views. I was interested in a fine apartment. I was also interested in a bath because I love bathtubs. It's just, a way to help me to unwind. And sometimes I saw really great apartments, but because they didn't have a bathtub, I'm like, no, this is not what I want. But eventually, I got a house that looked okay to me, and I signed a lease. And this happened on the 26th of April. And on the 26th of April was when I sent my documents to the CVU. And, with them, I think there was one document I submitted wrongly and others were clarified. And then I made payment of 300 euros to the CVU. So this is the second payment I'm making now. The first payment was with the Nomad residents. And then the second payment was with the CVU. Basically, if Malta is visa free for you or you already have a Malta visa, this part of CVU is not something that you would be doing. On May the 2nd, the CVU created a label for me with UPS to send my passports and my passport photographs down to Malta. And then I tracked it and it got to them. And, after everything, I received my passport with my visa on June the 2nd. And on June 3rd was when I left for Malta. So I arrived Malta on June 4th. After I arrived Malta, I let the residency people know that I had arrived. And then they helped me get an appointment with Identity Malta. So this appointment is for the biometrics. So on the 6th of June, I went to the Identity Malta to get my biometrics done. With Identity Malta, I paid them 27.5 euros. After 10 days, which was on June 16th, I got a notification to go pick up my resident card. From the point of my first submission to when I picked my card, that's February 9th to June the 16th, was a total of 4 months. So there are a couple of things to note as someone who wants to apply for this residence permit. Even if you meet all the basic criteria, you're working remotely, you meet the income, so you mustn't be employed. You could be self-employed, you could be a freelancer, or you could be working for somebody. Even if you meet all these criteria, there are some things that could reduce your chances. If your visa has been rejected by the Schengen region before, this can impact on your application. I have a friend who met all the requirements, but his application was rejected. I have this other friend who also had a previous Schengen rejection, but in their letter of intent, they were able to state that clearly because it had stuff to do with documents. So they were able to state that clearly and, what step they had taken since then to make sure that, they submitted the right documents. So it was in his letter of intent that he acknowledged that he has a history of Schengen rejection, and this is the steps he's taken towards that since then. And also, you need to make sure the kind of documents you submit. Do not submit forged documents, This can, there are people who are going through this and they are trained in all this. So just make sure you submit the right documents. Just make sure that you communicate any relevant information. And you would be fine. Just to summarize on the cost of this application, the first payment is 300 euros that you have to make to Nomad residents. Then you have to get your comprehensive health insurance. This could be anywhere between $500 to over $1,000 for 1 year. And then you also have to get your accommodation. This could be a temporary 1 month accommodation. For a temporary 1 month accommodation, it could cost like $800 to $1,500. And then if you want to get a lease, yeah, that also works like I did. Usually, like in most countries, if you want to get a 1 year lease, you have to make a deposit equivalent of 1 month rent. And then when you move in, you have to make your payments for the first month. And then you have to pay for the agency fee. That is if you got the apartment through an agent. And then the other fee is to the CVU. That's for the premium visa. That's 300 euros. And the last payment is the payment you make to Identity Malta. So this payment to Identity Malta is 27.5 euros. So this is the payment you make when you go for your biometric for your card. And yes, this is everything you pay for this Nomad resident. This could go anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 USD. But the basic fee, which is the 300 to Nomad residents, 300 to CVU, 27.5. That's just approximately 700 USD, and then the rest is going to your health insurance and your accommodation. Yes, so that is the summary of it. I have tried to cover everything I remember about the Malta Nomad residence. If you have further questions, you can ask and I'll be happy to answer. The Nomad residence has its spec over something like a visitor visa, of course. First and foremost is that this is a 1 year permit. So unlike your visitor visa that could be just 3 months, and with this 1 year permit, you have all the rights of anyone who has a Schengen visa. For example, you can visit any of the Schengen countries 3 months within a 90-day period. And so what this means cumulatively in a year, you can visit the other Schengen countries 6 months in a year. And then, so it actually like feels cool to have this no restriction, move around, come back to Malta, experience the culture here. And so far, this has been one of my favorite experience in my traveling. And yes, hopefully, I have covered most of what the Malta Nomad residence entails. And if you have further questions, feel free to ask and I'll try to answer as much as I can. And as always, thank you. I'm able to do this because of you, because you're watching me, because, I'm giving out something to you. So thank you guys for joining. Like, follow, subscribe, share. I love you guys.